This video is sponsored by Ground News, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later.
Welcome back to The Watch. And Shad, you like disliking Hollywood?
I very much dislike Hollywood. In fact, I hope it continues to burn. They get what they deserve. It's been totally overtaken by activists, and they've just been pushing out sludge for the purpose of spreading propaganda as a primary thing. For the most part, there's a rare exception, but yeah, let Hollywood burn.
Yes, I agree. But until then, they are trapped in this bubble of echo chambers and... You know the dribble.
Self-reinforcement.
Yes.
There's
exactly.
everyone within this bubble telling each other how great they are, while most people are watching them from the outside saying, you guys are horrible.
Yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Who would say something like that? And recently, they've had an award ceremony of some sort.
Oh, man. If you want to see one of the most... painful, if you want to push yourself, to see a group of people just circle jerking themselves and sniffing their own farts, just watch these award ceremonies. I barely tried years ago. I think it might have been when Will Smith slapped, because that actually got some attention to the Emmys or something. But you got to see some of the lead up and everything, and they're saying how great they are, and we're such great artists, and we're making all this, and none of that, we're so important, right? And then they make their acceptance speeches a platform to lecture everyone else about how they need to act, when they are some of the most corrupt bullcrap people, which is why I found the Will Smith slap hilarious, because it was a face-off where these are such narcissistic, self-centered, arrogant people, right? And that really revealed it in an additional thing, because you can see it everywhere. So, yeah.
But that's perfect. That's exactly what leads into it. Because recently they had a women's award night, basically, where they...
I wouldn't have too much an issue with this if there was a men's awards night.
No, but the regular awards are for the men, because of the society that we live in.
Not modern day.
Well, you're not wrong there, Shad. That's also true. But
even if it was, bullcrap. Awards should be based on merit, and if there just happens to be a large representation of men in certain career fields, let the chips land where they are, and women have an equal opportunity to win those awards. So the narrative that they're all for men anyway is almost an admission that if women, women and men actually saying this, right? That women need a dedicated award ceremony, and not for men, because men already have their dedicated in an open playing field against men and women, is an admission on their behalf that women can't compete. When I thought I thought women could compete in their even field.
yes, it's kind of like...
Except for sports.
I was going to say sports. Sports makes sense to have women's football and men's, that makes sense to me.
But before we continue, as I mentioned, this video is sponsored by Ground News. Ground News lets you know certain biases that appear in news media and gives you a bit of information to get a more, balanced view of the information you consume.
That's right. Echo chambers are a big problem in today's day and age. So if you want to break free of one, Ground News seems to have you covered.
Yeah, I mean, look, you get these quick visual breakdowns from of the news outlets reporting. It gives their political biases, how factual the source is, which entity owns the source. That one I find interesting, because I really find how certain articles, supporting Disney or certain giving positive reviews, there's ABC parent company, and yes, you find out
It's crazy when all the titles are just the same with one or two words changed.
Yeah. Also really interesting, you can follow specific countries and read news related directly to that country. And also, when you go to Ground News, it helps you follow the topics you're interested in, because it'll give you the current, articles that are out there for Hollywood, movies, TVs, politics, anything like that. Also, really interesting, helpful, is that you can discover stories that are disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum using the blind spot feed. So if you go to ground.news/nights, you will be able to stay fully informed on breaking news, compare the coverage and avoid media bias. You can sign up or subscribe through our link to get 30% off. And that's 30% off, gives you unlimited access to this service to support their mission of unbiased news, and I think you'll find it very, very useful.
But this one, I think, is just kind of Hollywood being Hollywood and wanting to, like you were saying before, just gather together and say how great we all are. But from this award ceremony came some mind-boggling comments. The main one for me was from Will Ferrell, who basically said, he knocked off the event. This is how they open the event, right?
So hang on, this is an award ceremony for women.
Yes.
Why was he there?
Because he is a advocate.
Okay, did he win an award?
No. But
Okay.
he handed out the awards.
Oh, he was there handing out the awards.
Yeah.
So hang on. I'm trying to think from their mindset, okay? Wouldn't they feel that's condescending for a man to hand out the women awards to women? That it's the man seeming to be from a position of
Power? Yeah.
Power?
Well, I think they would have thought that, but because of his opening lines, I think they're okay with him being there.
Okay, what did he say?
Because he said, isn't it just time for women to run the planet? Like, I'm serious. I'm not just trying to placate you, I swear. But I don't know what else to do because we, men, have run the show since, 10,000 BC? And we're not doing a good job.
Wow. There is so much wrong with that statement and a lot of sexism ingrained in that and just denial of reality, because I see a lot of industries that's predominantly run by women these days. Look at modern Marvel comics, right?
There's so education, schooling, just motherhood in general. I think mothers run the world because they raise the children who come up in the future.
Well, that's the historical perspective. If anyone wants to look at history actually objectively, right, you will see women's role in the way society has been run and molded in a really significant way. Okay, to say it was only men running everything historically is unbelievable historical ignorance. Okay, were large political movements that were mostly pushed by women, because this is the thing that I guess these people have trouble understanding. Okay, a good leader, regardless of what's between their legs, is going to listen to the people they represent. And for me, I give not a single crap the gender of the person that is representing me. What I care about is them representing my standards and interests, and if they are my political representative, representing me, their constituent, right? And if they do that, you're all on board. There's political, parties here in Australia that's led by women. Pauline Hanson. I gotta drop it. She's been winning lately, right? But she supports a lot of, conservative standards that, okay, but it doesn't matter about the gender. It matters about what they represent.
Yes.
And guess what? Good leaders in history, even though, predominantly men, they listen to women a lot. In actual fact, there were large political movements that happened because of women. You want to go have a look at the history of the Prohibition? The entire banning of alcohol across the entire United States, that was mostly pushed for by women. The amount of political power that women had at that time, and even at any time, right? When they band together to get their voice heard, they did it. And then that's also not to say that there weren't women leaders historically, who, by the way, were not shy of going to war as well. the whole notion that women everything was run by women would never go to war and all be peace. So, all right, look, Elizabeth, and see how things went with in terms of battles and war and other things like that, and other famous female leaders historically. All right? Sorry, this is getting me to rant.
Yeah, but that's the point we're trying to make here. It's like that entire comment, and it's funny because through this article, people are saying, we understand history, we need to reinterpret things how they are, my truth and your truth. The way they say all these things, it's like, well, you're just spouting gobbledygook because you don't understand the core concepts. Like you're saying with history, they're saying, history is mainly written by men. It's like, well, clearly you have not read a single history book in your life because that's just inherently not true. And just because it's your truth does not mean that it is true.
And when we say their truth, it's actually not true. It's their opinion. And it's their wrong opinion.
They're reinterpreting language to make it sound a little bit more convincing, but it's not going to work.
There are certain kind of roles of leadership that there is gender disparity in, because guess what? Men and women are different. They have different strengths and weaknesses, different characteristics that they more naturally adopt to in certain circumstances, and that results in different performances in different roles. And because men and women need to work together to build society, what often happens, there's exceptions of course, but what often happens is that the best person for the job usually ends up filling that job because of those characteristics, with exceptions of course. But it ended up happening that men naturally gravitate towards outwards flowing power, which can also be construed as political power. But women, they didn't have no power. Women often adopts and fall into the role of what is considered inwards flowing power, like managing a household, managing processes between communities and relationships and peoples and connections, stuff like that. And women had a huge influence throughout history of that. And it was both men and women encouraging the other to move to... You want to know, shock horror, right? Who also actually encouraged men to take positions of leadership, because that involved sometimes really aggressive negotiations, often leading to war that needed an intimidative kind of presence to be able to maintain authority. Women wanted men in those positions, historically, okay? And guess what? They would then also influence the men and counsel them, and a good leader would listen. But it also goes to the rest. Women had huge amounts of power in their own more stereotypical roles historically. But people like, Will Farrer here is completely ignorant on the reality here. And what's also really interesting is the mere fact that he is capable of saying this statement, right, and being praised by the mainstream, okay? We're not praising him, so there are pockets, of course, that call this bullcrap out for what it is, but he can mostly, for the large majority, say it and be praised by the institutes that have most influence and power, so large companies, governments, and stuff like that, right? The fact that he can say that about men, saying women should just run everything, right? But he can't, if he said that about, like, in reverse, they'd say, men should just run everything, right? And the amount of backlash and criticism he would get actually shows you the current state of the world as to which gender has the control and power in the current day. You already have it, essentially. There's so many companies and institutions that are predominantly run by women, and if not women, really effeminate men who act like women. But, it's not enough.
No. But the thing is too, right, we don't want men to rule the world or run the world either. What we want is actual, genuine equality in the term of, like...
just the right person who's good for the job to
Exactly.
do the job. And gender doesn't mean spit. And if it ends, legitimately, if more women were representing, it isn't actually just because a lot of women actually fall into the same kind of political divide as men. It's actually there's a lot of women who just are not interested in politics and leadership, right? Like, if you actually look up which gender consumes political content, actual, in terms of news and events and studying and stuff like that, men just naturally are attracted to politics more than women. And if you have more men interested in politics than women, guess who's going to be putting themselves up into leadership roles, right? Just by percentage divide, it's going to end up being the group that's doing it more often. And so, but if it was reversed, if it was women, if they're representing my sins, everything like that, it doesn't matter, right? It's like, that's what's actually important, but not for these people, because they're actually sexist. This is a profoundly sexist statement, and they're oblivious to it. They think it's actually equality, but it goes straight, this is amazing, right? I've said again and again that modern day feminism isn't about equality. It's about power and revenge. That they actually don't want equality. They want majority. They want majority women in power. And what is Will saying? I'm sure he would say, I'm a feminist and this is a feminist stance. And is he pushing for equality in this statement?
No.
No. He's saying women should run everything. And so again, the mask office happens all over the place. You heard of feminist monopoly, that instead of, giving,
A fair amount.
Only women get 200 of passing go and men get nothing, right? Yeah. There's no men's dedicated award shows. It's only women's dedicated. Again, they don't want equality. They want majority and supremacy. And the reason why they justify it is they say, well, men have had it this way for so long, it's women's turn. So that means they're basically saying we want to oppress who we perceive, and they're wrong that men have been the oppressor of women through history. Like, if there's a lot of situations, because we're not saying it was all perfect historically, there were situations in the past where women did have less rights and stuff, right? But the people that actually pushed for society to be in those ways were equally women and men at the same time. And it was men that was in power, right, that gave women the vote. So oftentimes there were men pushing for actual equality in the past as much as women. And there were a lot of women who were against that. Like in terms of women getting the vote, there was a lot of women who were against it because they were saying that would make them eligible for the draft.
Yeah.
Right? And so what you see when you actually study history is the times in the past where you would perceive inequality, there was also women in that time period who wanted things to be that way. And when people didn't want it that way, you could also see a large group of men pushing for changes in society. It wasn't just us versus them, okay? But they don't understand this. That's far too much nuance for people. Instead, it was all horrible inequality in the past, and because it was, that justifies them oppressing men now. And they like it. They actually get satisfaction out of this level of inequality and bigotry and oppression. And this is just another statement that proves it.
Yeah. So that's Hollywood for now. There'll be more coming probably down the road until something goes down one day. But until then, everyone, be sure to stay on watch.